You mentioned all inclusive resorts. Or street food that people love to try when they travel. And people are like, well, what do I do? There are all these options and I want to try them. And I simply give them another option, like try them. Don't stuff yourself with them. You don't have to go either all out or nothing at all. That's another, I think, mindset shift that people need to make. It's not nothing or everything.
What's up, my friend? Welcome back to the Legendary Life Podcast. I'm your host, Ted Rice, health expert and coach to entrepreneurs, executives, and other high-performing professionals. Today, we have a special guest on the show. Her name is Angela Shurina. She's a brain, productivity, health, and wellness coach for entrepreneurs and teams working remotely. She offers neuroscience-based coaching to improve focus and productivity. She's also the author of Fit and Focused Brain Body Blueprint for Remote Pros and Digital Nomads. So as I said last Friday, Angela is a friend of mine, and we've talked shop together. I love her approach. I love where she comes from. And she's been in the game for a while, and she's been traveling longer than I have before digital nomad was like a term that we threw around. So if you're struggling with consistency in your workout and diet habits, and you're a person who travels a lot, maybe you're a digital nomad like me as well, and you feel your fitness and health progress vanishing every time you hit a new airport, you're going to learn a lot from this episode. Even if you don't travel that much, you're going to start to see it's about these fundamental things that we talk about today to keep your routines and habits intact despite what challenges you might have. So without further ado, let's step into this conversation with Angela Shurina. So Angela Shurina, thanks so much for being on the show today. And I feel like it's been a long time coming.
Yeah, thank you, Dad. It's been, and thank you for inviting me. Super excited to be on the show.
Me too. And we're both kind of laughing because we had to switch recording software a couple times. So we've said like the same thing 3 times already.
Yeah.
But we keep on rolling. And I think that's a good side lesson for that we can return to later, especially when we talk about what you're good at, which is helping digital nomads specifically. Like, how do you stay in shape while you travel? That's one of the hardest things you can ever be faced with when it comes to fat loss, I feel. So without getting too far into that, we'll come back to that later. But the thing I'd love to share is, first of all, how we met, right? We met over Instagram, hung out in Playa del Carmen.
Yeah, where I still am.
Yeah, and where you still are. You're in that nice apartment right on La Quinta, next to all the restaurants, a couple blocks away from the beach. Beautiful place. And so I know you, and I've seen some of the work that you've done as far as you just wrote a new book. We'll be talking about that. And you've worked with you work with the same type of clients that I do. And so can you talk a little bit about your journey? Because you weren't a health and fitness coach to begin with. Where did you start, and how did you get to where you're coaching people from Mexico on how to live better?
Yeah, I'm coaching people from anywhere, right? It's like the beauty of our online world. But how I started, well, initially it all began like my interest in nutrition and health, and using those as tools started when I was a teenager, around 13, 14, when I got an autoimmune condition and doctors couldn't help me. And I'm like, I need this to be fixed. I don't care. And so I started doing my research, and I helped myself. And then that kind of faded into background for a little bit. And I, continued my studies, and I got my degree in computer science that parents advised me to do. But I realized I didn't want to work in that. And what I've been passionate about for quite some time is health and also fitness. I've always been into like fitness, into active lifestyle. And so I decided to get back to my passions, and I got certified as a personal trainer. And that's how like fitness part of that started. Then I had a motorbike accident that kind of switched me into nutrition. And
was that
lifestyle.
while you were traveling?
While I was traveling, I started my digital nomad journey. I didn't even know the word for that back then. It was more than 11 years ago,
I don't
right?
think they called it that, right? That's a
I
newer
know.
term. You're like one of the originals.
Kind of. We just like, what do you do? I work online. That's what you would say. That's it. And so I was in Thailand where I spent, in Southeast Asia, about 3-4 years total. And there I had my motorbike accident. I basically drove myself into sand and I almost died. And at that point, I realized that fitness is great, but what if that stuff happens again? I cannot rely on that as being my main thing because, again, things can happen. You might consider something more not physical. And so that's how I switched into health coaching, into nutrition coaching, getting my nutrition health coaching certifications, and started working with people more on that side. And then quite recently, after a while, like being in that field and working with a lot of entrepreneurs, a lot of people who want to perform better, who want to look better, do better, I got more and more into performance coaching because I realized that's what you get when you get your fitness on point, when you get your nutrition on point, and a lot of other tools. And I wanted to learn more about it and get specifically into that. And so while here in Mexico, actually, I transitioned my business model completely into that area of performance coaching, still helping people, of course, with their health and fitness, but then also using a lot of other tools that are more neuroscience based to help people feel the way they want to feel. And that ultimately defines what we think, what decisions we make, and how we approach our life. So that's kind of a long story short.
Yeah, I hear you on that. And, when you talk about so much to go into there.
Yeah,
but
it's been a journey.
Well, what comes up for me is two things, right? One is like, you talked about how I was a personal trainer for 20 years and I kind of recognize the same thing. Like, oh, this is dependent on me showing up physically, counting reps, loading weight, taking off weight, demonstrating exercises. But what I really noticed was that I get way better results, or more specifically, more importantly, my clients get way better results with online coaching. So I would ask you, like, what have you noticed from your personal training days versus transitioning to online coaching with the types of results? And, what do you see as the differences?
I personally don't think it's about like physical or online coaching. I think I just noticed that nutrition and lifestyle give much better results to people. And I notice it in myself too, right? I've always been a person into fitness, but not until I got all the lifestyle, nutritious choices on point and got consistent with that, I got consistent results and I'm not struggling with that anymore, right? Like for me personally, I can't say I'm working on my fitness and health. It just, happens kind of because I know how to design my habits and my environment. So yeah, that's what I noticed. You just get better results from other things. Fitness, yeah, it's a part of it, but it's not, the factor that contributes the most to success. That's what I noticed.
Well, talk about that a little bit more because someone might hear that right now and they're like, I don't even know what that means exactly. Like, how do you get better results by focusing on other things? So what are the other things you started focusing on for your client? Let's talk about your clients. What are the other things you started focusing on for your clients? And what are the end results of those things that you end up focusing on?
Great question. Systems and habits. Right? So there are all these great workout programs or, diets. But if you don't have a system that allows you to easily maintain your habits that allow you to maintain your results, if you don't have the systems, basically meaning your environment, how easy it is for you to do fitness or to eat healthy or to make better choices, if you don't set that up, so to speak, your support system, right? It's going to be hard for you to get results and maintain them if every day is like a struggle. And so whenever I work with someone, I always investigate, so to speak, the environment. Like what triggers you to make worse choices? What triggers you to make better choices in food and fitness, in sleep? And let's design with intention your environment, also your social circle, everything. So better choices are easier to do. And choices that you don't want to do, they are difficult, extra hard. There is friction. And sometimes we even design that, right? If, for example, you don't want to be eating unhealthy foods, that maybe let's delete all the delivery apps and let's maybe not walk around your favorite bakeries, like things like that. People think that doesn't matter, but that actually all that matters, like how you design your mindscape, so to speak, to make the right kind of choices, right? So for example, I also sometimes want to, I don't know, eat some junk food, but it's so hard for me to do it. I don't even know where to go. So
I could help you. Next time I'm in Playa del Carmen, Chez Celine's, their almond croissant. Down in
I don't even know those places. You see, it's gonna like make me jump through so many hoops to even get there. And that's the point. That's where you want to be, where your environment supports your better choices. And also, on a question of nutrition, like it's so much easier to just make certain nutrition choices instead of having to like run for an hour every day or, having to work out extra hard. Like I don't actually like to work out super hard. That's why I find, and for most people, that's true, to make a little bit better choices when it comes to your food. So you don't have to like run a horse race every single day.
100%. I want to talk a little bit about this because I'm with you. Like, I actually want to ask you about your keto journey as well in a second. So please don't let me forget about that. I want to come back to that because I know the keto, when you were keto.
Yes. Okay. Yeah, I was.
Yeah, let's talk about that. But let's talk first about this idea where, so we're both on social media. Like I'm not going to say that I don't study nutrition anymore. I do. I pay attention to it, but not really that much. And because I came to the same conclusion that you did. And I think every coach who spends enough time working with people, because you've been coaching people for 10 years, I've been at this for 23, which is not necessarily better because we were making just more mistakes back in those days. But what you eventually learn is that people do great when they show up for their personal training sessions. People do great when they have a high level of motivation, maybe at the beginning of the year, but it's what happens during the times where there's challenge that matters the most. And what do we fall back on is our routines, our habits, the things that are the systems, the things that are easy to do. And for what most people, the trap that most people fall into, even very smart, very financially successful entrepreneurs, is that they have a high level of motivation and they go all in with their fitness. And then things get busy or they can't stick to the keto diet. We can talk about that in a little bit and why you switched. And it's like, well, you didn't establish the habits. You went for something too big, which you were only able to do under ideal circumstances. And whenever those ideal circumstances disappear, and they always fucking disappear, they always disappear. Then you revert back to your bad habits, gain the weight back, and then end up hiring me next year because hashtag new year, new you. Talk a little bit about that and how you see some of the situations or maybe even share a story from a client who is struggling.
Not ideal circumstances reminds me of just digital nomad life and in general, because when you're a digital nomad or a person for whom things change rapidly, like your location, your apartment, foods you're used to, your gyms, like when all of this are changing all the time, you have to have very simple systems and things that you can do anywhere to maintain a level of fitness and health that you want to have, right? And so this lifestyle kind of by default teaches you where you are, where you don't have those systems. And when I work with my clients, most of whom are digital nomads and location independent people who just move a lot, whenever we introduce any new habit, any new routine that we decided to do consistently, I always walk them through. I ask them a lot of questions. Okay, but what do you do if you travel? Okay, what do you do if you don't have a gym? Okay, what do you do if you only can eat out and you don't have a kitchen? Like, what do you do when you just finished a whole day of work and you gave a talk or whatever, and you have nothing available, only like junk food? Like, what do you do then? How do you prepare yourself in advance to not go for that pizza that doesn't actually work for you and triggers the whole like cycle of certain eating and lifestyle behaviors, right? So that's kind of like, I think, one of the major things that I do that not so many coaches do, actually, this pre-game planning, and that's having all the options for all the possible circumstances that the person goes through in their life, and having a plan in advance for all of these situations, right? Because what a lot of people don't realize is when you have a plan or any sorts of decision for a specific situation and your brain knows exactly what it has to do, it's going to help you to do exactly that. It's when you don't have a plan and you're stressed and you're tired, that's when you just go for the easiest option, because you're like, oh, I don't know, I don't have energy to make decisions and I don't know what to do. So I'm just going to go for the first, choice that is available right now. And in our environment is not usually the best for the person choice, right? So it's like that pre-planning, like every possible situation and figuring out what is the way for you to deal with that situation. It's like, one of my clients, for example, he's a professional wrestler. I'm wrestling like fifth in the world or something. He's also in financial advising. Yeah. And he wants to be the first, right? And a couple of months ago, he went for one of the like competitions, it's like some level. I don't even understand all the specifics. And after that, he had pizza. And it's not like he wanted pizza. He just didn't prepare anything to have with him. And he was hungry and there was nothing available and there was a special facility for the event and there was nothing else available. Like, okay, so you did this, let's accept that. Nothing wrong with that. You did what was the best option. So for the next time, let's prepare. How can we deal with this situation better? Right. And so we brainstorm a lot of different scenarios. We make sure that we have certain options with us. And next time he went for a competition, he did that thing. He did a better thing. We prepared some snacks, some, foods that he could just eat without any preparation whatsoever. And he ate them because, again, we just planned for it. And that was it. No willpower, nothing special.
Yeah, that's a great example of how coaching comes in as a very powerful tool, because if you're just trying to implement something you read off of Twitter or heard on a podcast or saw on Instagram, it may work for you, it may not work for you. And if you do enough trial and error, you might come up with some tools that do work for you, but it's very work intensive. And then it's like you can also forget it. I think the results of most people speak to that level of investing in solving their challenges around whatever environmental challenge or travel challenge like we're talking about. Yeah. And what I love what you're saying too, is it has to do with training, right? We have to train ourselves. And there's a great quote from Navy SEALs.
Yeah, I think I know the quote. Yeah. That you fall to the level. Yeah.
Right. You don't rise to the level of your expectations. You default to the level of your training. And that's exactly what most people are doing. And so everyone, and we can talk about the neuroscience of this and the psychology involved, because I love that too. That's all I really pay attention to, like how to get people to change behavior. Like how do we get someone to change behavior? But back to that idea is that as soon as stress comes on, you default back to the level of your training. And if your level of your training is you listen to a podcast like this, even, I love my podcast. I love doing these interviews. They're great, but it's not training, right? And so if you keep finding yourself falling back into habits that are bringing you away from your goals, your health goals, you need training. Just like if you wanted to perform better on the golf field and under pressure, what do? What's the best thing you can do? You hire the best golf coach around. Or with tennis, you hire the best tennis coach around. And what do? They train you. They prepare you for these situations. And that's what we do with our clients. And it works the same way that golf coaching and tennis coaching works.
Yeah. And just wanted to get back at that idea of training, what happens in the brain actually, and why I switched to brain coaching in general. To help people understand that with that training, what happens is you build a new circuit in your brain. The brain always likes familiar circuits because they require less energy. So whenever you train for something, you're building the circuit, right? And when the stress comes and your body and your brain default for the least demanding when it comes to energy and resources option, like if you didn't build that circuit, it's going to be more energy demanding than the old circuit. And that's why your brain defaults for the, easiest option, not because, it's better for you, but because it's the easiest from the energy perspective right at the moment.
Yeah. And I think a lot of people don't understand that. What they think they have is a lack of a habit. Say if someone's like, I can't make it to the gym regularly. It's like, no, you don't have a lack of habit. You have a habit. It's just the habit is come home, take off your shoes, sit on the couch, eat and watch Netflix. So that's why it's so hard to break. Stop doing something like that is because it's ingrained.
Yeah.
Right?
And it's because,
ingrained.
I love this also metaphor that when you're building a new road and it's dirty, it's messy, it's very hard to ride along that. When you have a road that is built and, it's strong, it's steady, you can just ride full speed. And that the same thing happens in the brain. It's kind of like you digging this road, and until it's done, it's going to be harder than that, old pattern to travel along.
I love that metaphor. So if you're listening right now, there's a clear road that you've established somewhere.
Yeah.
And that's the road that you take when the conditions get less than ideal. That other road that you're trying to build, it's dusty, it's not quite finished. They're still going over and dropping the well, I don't know what it's called. It's not asphalt, right? I don't even know what that substance is called, but they're preparing that new road and painting it, but it's not quite done. And so you have to wait until that road is done. And the way to do that is to, the unfortunate hack or secret is you keep fucking going, even when it's hard. And when you fall off, you keep going. Do you have, is that the way you see it, or do you feel differently?
I feel exactly the same. You even described it even better. The only thing that I'd like to add is you can actually hack this a little bit for your brain, making it easier, kind of bringing the bulldozer or another team to, to build that road. What you do is you celebrate that habit every time you make it happen. Because when you feel good, your brain considers it a reward, something that brings you some benefit, and it releases dopamine and other brain chemicals to make sure to remember that. And it kind of like, burning it, making it a tool. Like when the dopamine is released, whatever behavior is done with that dopamine release, it solidifies in the brain much faster. And again, the way to do it is to feel good when you accomplish something. And, a lot of clients of mine laugh at me when I tell them, let's learn how to celebrate. Like, what's your power move? Like, that is for me, or something like that. You got to feel good, and it has to be not fake. And the more you do it, the faster you're going to build the new habits. So this is kind of the hack that is also in the book, Tiny Habits by BJ Fogg, I think.
Fogg.
He's a PhD of behavior science, right? So it actually a very powerful tool that people think, unless they try it, it's kind of like bullshit. But when they try it, they realize it actually does work really well.
Yeah, let's talk about that a little bit more. And also I want to talk about sleep, because people are trying to build these new habits in their brain. And then if they're not sleeping well, you don't establish memories as concretely when you're struggling with sleep. So that's another thing that came up. But I want to talk about like this idea of reward, because it's so important. It's just positive reinforcement. You talked a little bit about the brain chemistry happening, but you've got to celebrate in some way. You got to do something, because if you don't, it just seems I remember, and this is true, by the way, if you're listening, this is true even with business stuff. Like when I make when a new client signs up to my coaching program, I go celebrate it. Not because like, I've signed up so many clients, but I still celebrate it and I feel good as a result, because otherwise it's just like, okay, a new client, okay, get back to the grind. And then if that happens, that can steal the thunder, the reward, the feeling of accomplishing something like you were talking about. It must have something to do with the release of dopamine in the brain. I feel much more motivated to grow my business when I'm celebrating my wins. And the same is true. What you're saying is of celebrating your wins with health and fitness. Just don't celebrate with food, right? Food and alcohol.
And to that point also, I wanted to add that actually to do it in the most effective way, you have a 20-second window when you see the brain doesn't associate something that you did today with the reward that you're going to do at the end of the month. No, that's not actually how it works. So it has to be immediate. That's why I'm talking about power moves. What can you do in any place, in any situation when you achieve something or you do something that you know is good for you? What can you do really fast in that 20-second window that's going to make you feel good? And it can just be, a smile to yourself, just acknowledging that. That can be small. It doesn't necessarily have to be like, that super move, but it has to be something that makes a person feel good.
Yeah, interesting. So I've never tried that. I'm going to experiment with that a little bit and I'll get back to you. I've never tried celebrate. I'll usually celebrate that day and I still feel pretty good about it, or maybe, 20 minutes or an hour, or maybe a few hours later, but I'll give that a try. I want everybody to listen. If that may sound stupid, but it's also stupid if you're running a successful company and you're overweight or obese. That's pretty dumb too. And not that I want to say you're dumb or, it's just that what the point I'm trying to make by saying that is we're dealing with some primitive programming in our brain that is really quite good at helping us survive an environment that doesn't exist anymore without the Uber Eats and the Amazon one-click 1 hour delivery. You don't even have to, you could just sit in your chair and just have food delivered to you. It's crazy.
To that point, actually, about Uber Eats, people think that, food changed so much. That's why we're getting obese, as a society. It's not the food. It's the environment, the easiness and, access to calories, to not doing much and not having to move physically. It's these things that change much, not so much food.
Let's talk about this because you and I think we can bring some, even though I want to talk about keto and sleep, but something that I think you and I can bring to people right now that might be different than what they're hearing is like, and I'll give a quick example, and I know you can relate, although I'd love to hear how you transitioned out of keto when you're in Thailand. So I had a bunch of beliefs about food. I started breaking them eventually, but they were intellectual shifts, right? Like, for example, carbs make you fat. People in the US in particular believe that, and I believe that. And then I made an intellectual shift, and certainly I had the evidence to back it up. But then I went to Thailand, and these people are eating noodles and rice for every single meal. And certainly they do have an obesity crisis, statistically speaking. But if you would compare the level of obesity to Thailand versus the States, it's not even, they all look skinny. So what are some of the things that you've learned from traveling when we're talking about this environment issue? What are some of the environmental lessons you've learned from traveling or from working with your clients who also travel?
You mean very practical steps to kind of set yourself for success in the environment, or more of on the stories side?
Yeah, more cultural. Because here's the thing. Someone in the US can maybe watch a video about what life is like in Playa del Carmen, Mexico. Maybe they went on vacation to a resort in Cancun for a week, but stayed in the all-inclusive resort. And you're living there. I lived there. I went shopping at the Costco there, right? And I forget, Soriana, right? And now I'm in Brazil and I'm going shopping at Big Box and other places. And so So what are some of the stories you could share that maybe helped you shift your mind or your opinions about your views about the environment and how it's different in the US versus other places, and what people in America are really dealing with?
It's actually a big question.
Big question.
Yeah. I mean, what people in US I believe, are dealing with is just convenience and financial resources to do that convenience, and a lot of advertising and all this marketing, et cetera, right? Whereas like places like Mexico or a lot of places in Southeast Asia, they just don't have the resources to get all of that, stuff that they want to get, that people in US get, and that makes
don't have the money, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Although, isn't Mexico competing with the US obesity wise? I think it's getting there.
Yeah, because also like the convenient food gets more convenient and cheaper, and then making healthy meals and cooking gets also not so popular and not so cool, and then it's just easier to get food outside, whatever that quality is. So again, it's all about that environment. I'm coming from culture, like I'm Russian, was born in Russia, and there cooking at home is a cool thing. So if somebody offers you a home cooked meal, this is the cool thing. We like to go and visit each other, and we don't like to go to restaurants. It's like a second best option, right? And that makes a difference, because when you decide to do something together as like a party or a lot of friends, you like, who are we going to, who's cooking, etc. And of course, what you cook for yourself or for your friends, it's always better than what you get in your restaurants. You try to bring like the best ingredients, etc. Right? And that quality really does matter. Like, for example, a lot of people eating out, and I understand, that it can be a part of their routine, especially if you're busy, etc. But in restaurants, their goal competes with your goal if you're into health and fitness, because they want you to eat more. They want you to make the, fattiest, sweetest thing, whatever that can possibly be.
They want you to eat more. They want you to come back.
Yeah,
right?
Exactly.
So you're only going to do that if it tastes good, not necessarily if you're like, this is so healthy. It's not going to get you to come back.
Yes. And so your interests compete. You want to eat healthy. You want to eat less. The restaurant wants you to eat more, and then wants you to come back. And so they do their best job, and they add more fat, etc. And you get more calories, even like without noticing that, because you don't really see them. So, those things kind of shape people's behavior around food in different cultures. Getting back to what I usually work on with clients, we try to simplify things. A lot of times when clients come to me and when we work on their food specifically, I help them to simplify things. Okay, so every meal should have protein, carbs, some healthy fat in there somewhere. So how can you make it happen for breakfast, lunch, and dinner? What's your favorite foods? What can be done in every culture? Like, and those usually simple foods, I don't know, eggs, yogurt, chicken, meat, whatever, beans, rice, and like vegetables, fruit, etc. So the simple things, the food that do not require labels. So, and if you go out to eat, try to make the same kind of choice. Like, what can you put on your plate that is the least modified version of whole food, right? And how can you still stick to the basics, like your protein, your carbs, your fats, etc. So those kind of things that I teach my clients to just simplify things, and also to realize what a balanced meal is. Like, these are the food groups, your old known fats, proteins, and carbs, and also making them simpler, making them more whole food based, and realizing that most of the calories in your meal, especially when you eat out, come not from those foods, but things like the fat you add or the sugar that you add. And if you are on a weight loss journey, and then you are aware of that and you count them in. And, if something has more sauce, etc., just be mindful about. And another thing, like you mentioned, all inclusive resorts, or, street food that people love to try when they travel. And people are like, well, what do I do? There are all these options and I want to try them. And I simply give them another option, like, try them. Don't stuff yourself with them. You don't have to go either all out or nothing at all. That's another, I think, mindset shift that people need to make. It's not nothing or everything. No, you can kind of be in the middle, try things, and then the majority of your meals and food should again be basic, be those, healthy foods with carbs, proteins, and fats, etc. So it's that also shift that doesn't allow a lot of times people to stay in shape. They're like, well, I either do a very hard workout or nothing. How about like 15 minutes of, at hotel room, body weight workout or whatever works, whatever. How about walk after dinner, right? And teaching this, like staying in the gray zone, so to speak, not black and white, all or nothing, also is huge for many people. And sometimes, very often, actually, I would ask my clients, okay, so we cannot make perfect choice here. What is the next best option? Or what is a little bit better option than the worst? That's the kind of like question I like to ask my clients, and they find a lot of options by themselves once they don't stick to black and white model.
Yeah, that was a game changer when I learned that I think we learned that from I think everybody learned it from John Berardi, right, in the fitness industry, and talking about that all or nothing approach. And at first I thought it was just kind of something cool to repeat when I first learned it, however many years ago. But now it's like, when I heard it and then started paying attention to what my clients were doing and what I was doing, it's like, whoa, you really see people give up. They're not flexible. And what I love about this idea is people think they're doing the hard thing. Like, no, if I can't do that, go to the gym, do that hard workout. I'm not going to do it at all. That's actually not the hard thing. That's the easy thing. It's the easy thing if you're doing that. The really hard thing is to train yourself to be consistent, to put in something, to do a 15-minute workout when you feel like, no, it's not going to work. It's not a waste of time. It's like, no, it's not a waste of time. That's why you have the belly that you have, right? It's because you're not doing these things consistently. You're going for the best choice or the worst choice, but you're not doing the better choice or the least or the lesser bad choice. Yeah. So important. And Angela, let's talk a little bit about your book. So you wrote this book. You get the full title, Fit and Focused Brain Body Blueprint for Remote Pros and Digital Nomads, Neuroscience-Based Routines, Hacks, and Habits to Stay Productive, Healthy, and Fit Anywhere. Talk a little bit about why you felt like you had to write a book about this.
I think the most important reason is maybe a couple. First of all, I truly believe that it's all in the brain. If you design your environment for the brain that is healthy, that is happy, for which it is easy to make the right choices, then the rest will just follow. The brain is this conductor of everything else. Whatever your brain perceives, whether, that's negative or positive, your brain will make you and your body to make the choices either that are beneficial for someone's goals or not beneficial, right? And so you always want to make sure that you set your brain for success. And that means not poisoning the brain with some substances that the brain doesn't know how to deal with. That means maintaining lower stress levels, meaning managing your stress, because stressed brain doesn't make good choices, right? So maximizing or making it easy, again, for the brain to make the right choices. And that requires certain routines like viewing light first thing in the morning, getting outside, that produces certain brain chemistry that down the road makes you to make better choices. So that was number one reason why I wanted to write it, because it's been long coming. And that's what I understood and learned over the 20 years of coaching and my personal journey. It's all in the brain. When your brain is healthy, it's going to help you to deliver your goals, to get your goals. Your brain is on your side, but you got to make sure that it works right. And the second thing, by now we have all these tools about the environment, about lifestyle, kind of like the foundation of a functional human machine, right? And I wanted to give this foundation that are super flexible, can be done anywhere in any environment with or without any equipment. So I wanted to give people this framework of foundation for a well-functioning brain-body machine. Once you have that, that is, again, very flexible. You don't care about diets or specific workouts. You just maintain great levels of, fitness and health. And after that, you're going to do great in all the other areas, maintaining high energy levels, high motivation levels. So those two reasons, just it's all in the brain. And the second thing is we have enough science to say this is the kind of like blueprint that you need to follow in order to maintain well-functioning brain-body machine.
Yeah. And I want to follow up on that point. Like it's all about the brain, because someone could hear that and maybe disagree with it or say something like, well, no, I think it's more metabolism. It's, metabolism, even though they probably don't know what that means or what the factors of a metabolism is. But I want to also bring up, like, if we look at what the medical definition of obesity is, it's a chronic brain disease. It's not your metabolism. It's not your genes. It's not your age. It's not whether you're a woman or a man or, you think you have stubborn fat. It's a chronic brain disease. I don't agree 100% with the medical definition in that. Well, I don't want to get too into this because this is a bit of a tangent. But the point is, even the medical establishment, that's how they're looking at it. That's how they treat it. And the most effective fat loss approach for obesity is surgery, bariatric surgery, lap band surgery, stomach reduction, whatever, method of surgery. But the reality of how it works is it changes your behavior. You get full quicker because your stomach is smaller. So it changes your behavior. Another thing that's coming out is taking a drug like semaglutide. What does it do? You're less hungry, so you eat less. What does it affect? What affects your brain? Even the genes. I had an interview with Stefan Guillenet. We were talking about the genetic basis of obesity, and the genes that we're learning, they're not with your metabolism. They're in your brain. Obese people, So I kind of getting up on a soapbox here, but just to drive home the point that you're making, this is really about understanding our brains better and getting our brains to work better instead of willpowering through things and then giving up because it's too hard.
Yeah. And, I just wanted to mention again, brain is an operating system, right? So it's kind of like a conductor of everything. Like if you have a faulty operating system on your computer, like it doesn't matter what hardware you have, it's not going to work all that well, right? So you got to correct that. But with the brain, what's tricky, I think, is that the brain is influenced by the environment that it's in, by the, light exposure, by your movement patterns, by your sleep, by your nutrition choices. So it kind of makes the decisions, but it also is very much affected by what you do. And that's what I think makes it difficult. So metabolism, yes, for obesity, but I believe it's more of a downstream effect, like when your brain is inflamed and it thinks, for example, that you need to be preserving energy, it's going to adjust your metabolism to do just that, to preserve that energy, to make you eat more, to transfer that more of that fuel into fat, because your brain thinks you are stressed, you are in danger, soon you might be spending more energy. So let's, adjust everything to make that energy preservation mode happen. But that's, again, it's down two-way street, right? You affect your brain with what you do, and then the brain affects you back. And kind of breaking the cycle, I think it's the hardest part that tricks, people into like just staying in the same space.
Yeah. And I think the easiest way to do that is the easiest way. Well, I think anybody can relate to I was going to say changing your environment is really easy. And so what I would is the easy way to notice these things. For example, if you go on vacation, let's say you're stressed, you have a low sex drive, you're hungry all the time, and you just want to eat and drink alcohol, and you have trouble sleeping at night, and then you wake up tired and drink a lot of coffee, and then you go on vacation. And let's say you're in Cancun, right?
Yeah.
And all of a sudden you're getting up in the morning, you're going outside, you're around nature on the beach, a blue zone, right? And you're getting that sunlight first thing in the morning. You have the work stresses that are set aside. And so it's easier to relax. You may find yourself taking a nap during the day, and you usually can't even take naps. And you just make better choices. And so if you pay attention to that, and then you go back to your old environment, and then you start, the craziness starts again, I think that's a good lesson. Like, what can you bring from vacation? You can't stay on permanent vacation. Even Angela and I, like, that's what we're trying to do, right? In a way, it's sunny Brazil. But yeah, I mean, that's what's coming away. Like, even we have to, certainly the environment matters a lot, but you can bring things back from those experiences. One thing I would ask you, one thing I'll say, and then I would ask you, and obviously this doesn't apply for your digital nomads, but one thing that I've noticed is that people who are in environments where, like, oh, get sunlight first thing in the morning. Well, guess what? It's cloudy all the time. It's London, for example.
I live there.
You live there, right?
Yes.
Like, what are those people supposed to do? Or in Michigan, where you can't even, get your 10,000 steps per day. Well, it's freezing outside and it's dark. So
yeah, I'm from Siberia. Know that.
Okay, so awesome. Then you can speak from experience, because I'm from Miami, and I've only traveled to places that have a lot of sunshine. I just can't bring myself to go to Siberia or Michigan.
Yeah, you see, because of my diversity of environments I've been through, I lived in London for a year. I'm from Siberia. I actually know what people are experiencing, in all of these areas. So all the negative side effects, in Siberia, 4 hours of sunlight in winter. And you usually go to work, it's still dark. You come back from work, it's already dark.
Wow.
Right. So the question was, what do you do in those environments, right?
What do people do who are in those environments that are like, they can't just become digital nomads, or they can't just move right away?
Well, but the beauty of our world today, that we have technology to solve almost anything. And that technology is pretty simple very often and not that expensive at all. Like, if I were to go back to Siberia right now, I would purchase one of those circadian lamps that have 10,000 lux intensity. And they're pretty good at helping your body to restart your circadian rhythm, to maintain high level, of mood and lower level of stress, etc. So it kind of imitates what's outside, right? So you can mitigate that. Of course, it's not like natural light, but it's better than nothing, much, much better, right? For example, if you can't make a lot of steps because it's freezing, I lived in a place, Siberia, where it's like -30 on average in winter, right? You don't want to be walking a lot. Again, there are standing desks. You can purchase treadmill. We used to have that treadmill in my family, for decades. And also the bicycle, what do you call it, stationary one, because of that. Because you sit inside very for longer periods of time, and you don't really have an option to get outside and start moving a lot. For sleep, some people, for example, cannot change. Just another frequent one that I get from people who especially live in couples, people, well, we don't as a couple, air conditioner. So what do? I'm kind of hot, and that decreases the quality of your sleep. And I'm like,
get us a thicker blanket, baby, because that AC is going down. Turning that AC down.
But the thing is, now we have these covers that change temperature on one side of the bed and on the other. So you can have your own temperature on both sides.
I didn't know that one. What's the name of that?
Well, we have Ooler, OLER, and then we have 8 Sleep. That is also we have a lot of those actually. So if you Google smart mattress or a smart cover, sleep cover, you'll probably get all of those. They're getting quite popular, and a lot of companies also do knockoffs, pretty good, but just not the most expensive models, because those are on a little bit more expensive side. But anyhow, so, or for example, when you travel, you can use earplugs, you can use masks if you don't have blackout curtains that are important, to sleep in the dark. There are so many tools that you can use these days to make your habit easy anywhere in the world. Doesn't matter what the environment is really. So yeah, a person has no excuse. But to your point, not a lot of people are aware of those things. And that's why I wrote the book also. I'm like, understand that this is why on vacation you feel so damn good and you have high libido and sex drive, because sun actually stimulates your sex drive. And that's why, as a couple, if you go away, you probably do have more intimate time. There is no magic in it. It's just how human body works, right? Or if you go out in the sun from after, like in the later afternoon, you actually boost your testosterone and your estrogen, right? Not a lot of people are aware of that. But once you're aware and you know how it works, you can design for it, you can optimize for that, and you can get the results consistently. And then you don't have to go on vacation. You can kind of make it happen anywhere where you are.
And have all that sex right at home.
Yes,
Don't
exactly.
Go to Cancun, that all-inclusive resort. By the way, the food's better outside the all-inclusive resorts is what I found.
Yeah.
Well, Angela, thanks so much. I mean, I feel like we could talk for another hour at least and just only scratch the surface of this. If you're enjoying this conversation and you want to learn more, and perhaps you're a person who is challenged by either traveling frequently like me or Angela, or if you're in a situation like Angela lived in Siberia. Like, I don't know how to tell you, like, go get a sad lamp. I don't know what to tell you. I lived in Miami my whole life. So make sure you check out her book if this is resonating with you. It's called Fit and Focused Brain Body Blueprint. And if you just put that in, I think it'll come up, or you can look for her name, Angela Shurina.
And it's also going to come up. It's going to be available as an audiobook in like a week or so. So
amazing.
Want to listen
to
it.
So cool. It's going to be, and that's so super important. I mean, I don't read books these days. Some people hate on that, but I'm an audiobook. I'm all about the audiobooks these days. So anyway, if you want to go and get her book, either Kindle, hardcover, paperback, or even audiobook, go to Amazon and look up Angela Shurina or Fit and Focused Body Brain Body Blueprint.
Yeah, it's all in the brain, starts there.
Exactly. And I need to go work on my brain. I've been having too many of those. I had too many of those almond croissants from Chase Lean down in Playa del Carmen. It's toxified my memory. But it was such a pleasure to have you on. I would love to have you. I really want to do this again because I feel like, this is the conversation that isn't being had enough. And I'm sure people are tired of hearing it from me on this podcast. So it's nice to have someone come on and kind of beat the drum from a different perspective. So thanks so much for coming on the show, Angela. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you, Ted. Thank you so much for inviting me and letting me share this message. It all starts in the brain. And that's why I'm so passionate about helping people to use that thing.
Yeah, use your brain better.
Yeah, exactly.
That's it for today, my friend. It's been a great conversation. I hope you learned a lot. For me, it's so great to talk with a person like Angela. While we have some aspects of health that we differ, for example, I love almond croissants and I'm not giving that up. I don't really feel the need to, unless I start to see my abs disappear. But mostly we're in agreement with things. And I learned a lot from talking with her today. I hope you did as well. And I would ask you, what's one thing you can implement after hearing this conversation? And of course, don't forget to tune in on Friday for a new TED Talk conversation. This time it's going to be another Ask TED special episode where I answer a question from one of my listeners. And the question I'm going to answer is, how do you build muscle when you're over 50? So if you ask this question, if you have some concerns about being 50 or on your way to 50 like I am, or at least halfway there, or if you're over 50, if you're not sure exactly how your age affects what you should do, I'm going to get into that on Friday. So tune in then and have an amazing week. Do you need help losing fat while still enjoying your life? I mean, who doesn't know how to lose fat when they're at home, never going out to a restaurant, eating chicken and broccoli? Everyone can do that. But if you enjoy your social life, spending time with friends, going out to dinner, trying new restaurants, well, that's what we help our clients do. We help successful entrepreneurs, executives, and other high-performing professionals to burn fat, grow muscle, boost their energy, reduce their stress, all while enjoying their social life, going on vacation, and growing their business. If you're ready to have the body you deserve, to look and feel younger, and to say goodbye to time-consuming workouts and strict diets, we can help you. The best place to go is to watch my free masterclass. Go to legendarylifeprogram.com/free. There's one masterclass for men, there's another for women. Again, go to legendarylifeprogram.com/free to watch my free body breakthrough masterclass.